At Thanksgiving, my mom tapped her glass with a fork and did that stage. Smile she saves for company. Your sister's wedding was beautiful, she said loud enough for the whole table to hear. So, Emma, when's yours? A couple of cousins chuckled. My dad kept sawing at the turkey like it might run away. My sister, Grace, stared at her plate, too still, too careful. She knew what was coming. I set my fork down. I already had mine, I said. You all got invitations. The silence hit the room like a door slamming. My dad finally looked up and whispered, We never got them. So I reached into my bag, pulled out my phone, and that was the moment every lie they'd been sitting on finally ran out of air. Growing up, my family worshipped appearances. Matching outfits for photos, rehearsed stories for holidays, every event polished until it gleamed. And in every one of those perfect little moments, Grace stood in the center like a centerpiece. I wasn't angry about it at first. I just thought that was how families worked. One child sparkled. The other learned how to stand slightly to the side. By high school, it wasn't just a pattern. It was the architecture of our house. My mom managed Grace's life like a PR campaign. Dance, cheer, pageants, a hallway full of framed certificates with her name on them. When I won something, a science award, a scholarship, Mom would smile and say, We'll take a picture later, honey. I need good light for Grace's new headshots. I didn't fight it. I adjusted. I became the observer, the helper, the one who made things run smoothly and asked for almost nothing. Moving 4 hours away to Riverside for work didn't start as rebellion. It started as breathing. I found a tiny apartment with huge windows and too much street noise. I covered the table with environmental reports and water quality charts from the lab where I worked. The job wasn't glamorous, but it mattered, and for the first time, I mattered somewhere too. That's where I met Daniel. He paid attention in ways my own family never even attempted. He remembered I hated olives but loved extra ice. He listened when I talked about the river project like it was interesting, even when it clearly wasn't. His parents, Marie and Thomas, noticed me too. Not because I performed, not because I was attached to their son, but because they actually cared who I was. The first time Marie hugged me, she didn't pull away right after the socially acceptable 3 seconds. She just held on, steady and warm. She asked about my work, and months later still remembered the details. I didn't realize how starved I was for that kind of attention until I got it. So when Daniel proposed on a foggy morning down by the water, I said yes before he even finished the question. We wanted something small and honest, not a performance. A little chapel by the coast, close friends, his family, a simple reception with more laughter than decor. The only thing I wanted that felt even slightly extravagant was this. My parents and Grace there, sitting in the pews, seeing me for once. I designed the invitations myself. I triple-checked addresses and mailed them with signature required, because I knew how easily things that weren't about Grace tended to disappear in that house. I tracked every envelope online like it was a heartbeat. Delivered, the website said one by one. So I waited. No text, no call, not even a passive-aggressive, "Wow, you didn't invite us," in the family group chat. Weeks passed, then the wedding, then more silence. There were 100 excuses I tried to feed myself. Maybe the mail got messed up. Maybe they were planning some big surprise entrance. Maybe they assumed we'd postponed. But under all those maybes sat something colder. What if ignoring my wedding had been the plan? I tried calling my mom. Straight to voicemail. I messaged my dad. He replied that he'd call later, then never did. When I opened our family group chat, my name wasn't there anymore. I hadn't been removed with drama. I just vanished. One night while we washed dishes, I told Daniel, "There's probably a glitch with my phone." He handed me a towel and asked very gently, "Did any of them ever respond to the invitations at all?" I stared at the sink. Not once. He didn't roll his eyes or tell me I was overthinking. He dried his hands and said, "Let's check what we can." He helped me look up the email logs for the announcement I'd sent to the family address. There it was, one open, then immediate deletion. No reply. No forwarding. Just gone. The activity showed it had been opened from my parents' house. I didn't need a detective to guess who did it. Grace has always been the gatekeeper. Sorted the mail, answered the landline, managed Mom's calendar, filtered anything that might stress my parents. And she was in the middle of planning her own giant September wedding. 300 guests, designer gown, custom everything. My small June ceremony suddenly made sense as a threat, not an event to celebrate. Still, I needed more than suspicion. I pulled up the postal receipts I'd saved. For packages delivered. 4 signatures. My name as sender, their address as destination. The signature on one of them was unmistakable, Grace's looping, confident handwriting. She hadn't lost my invitations. She had intercepted them. Daniel rested a hand on my arm. "What do you want to do?" he asked. I didn't have an answer. Outrage would have been easy. What I felt instead was an old, familiar ache. What do you do when the people you grew up begging to see you make a deliberate choice not to? Thanksgiving crept closer. I almost stayed in Riverside. Almost let them keep pretending I was a ghost. Instead, I printed out the receipts, saved every screenshot, and bought a train ticket. From the outside, my parents' house looked like a holiday commercial. White tablecloth, perfectly browned turkey, candles flickering in matching holders. Inside, the air was tight, full of old conversations we'd never had. Grace posed near the fireplace in a cream sweater dress while her husband, Ben, adjusted her hair for pictures. My mom hovered, describing Grace's wedding in breathless detail to anyone within earshot. My dad moved around the table, topping off wine glasses without looking at anyone for longer than a second. No one asked about my job. No one asked about married life. No one said, "We're sorry we missed it." It was like my wedding had happened in a different universe. I took the seat across from Grace. She didn't look up, but the tips of her ears were red. That told me more than any apology could. Dinner started with the usual script. Praise for Grace's dress, Grace's venue, Grace's friends. Every compliment was a reminder that my big moments had always been optional for them. Then my mom lifted her glass. "Grace's wedding turned out so beautiful," she announced. "So, Emma, when are we doing yours?" Light laughter floated around the table. Even my dad's knife hesitated in midair. For most of my life, I would have laughed along, let the remark sink in, and pretend it didn't hurt. That night, I was done pretending. "I already had my wedding," I said. 6 months ago. You were all invited." The room snapped into stillness. All the clinking and chewing stopped at once. My mom's smile slid right off her face. My dad frowned like he'd misheard. Grace's shoulders went rigid. My dad cleared his throat. "We never got anything from you," he said quietly. "I figured you'd say that," I replied. I reached into my bag, pulled out my phone, and set it on the table, screen up. I opened the postal tracking page and turned it so they could see. "For invitations," I said. "All delivered. Signature required." The first receipt showed on the screen. The signature at the bottom might as well have been a flashing neon sign, Grace. My mom inhaled sharply. My dad leaned in, squinting. Ben's gaze flicked from the phone to his wife. "Grace," he asked softly. She didn't answer. Her jaw clenched. "These were delivered April 22nd, I said. "All signed for by Grace." My dad shook his head. "There has to be some mistake." "There isn't," I said. I swiped to the next screenshot. "This is the email log for the family account. My announcement went there. It was opened from this house and deleted with no reply." No one moved. My mom whispered, "Grace would never hide something like that. She loves you. She would never sabotage your wedding." "Stop telling me who she wouldn't be," I said quietly. "Start looking at what she actually did." Ben turned to his wife again, his voice low but firm. "Did you delete those emails?" Grace finally spoke, her words coming out too fast. "I don't remember. I see a lot of mail. Why are you all attacking me?" "I'm not attacking you," I said. "I'm describing your actions." My dad stared at her. "Did you sign for those invitations or not?" She swallowed. "Maybe I did. I don't know. I was busy. Everything that month was about my wedding. I can't track every little thing everyone sends." There it was, the slip. My mom reached for her. "Honey," I cut in, still calm. "You didn't want anyone talking about my wedding before yours," I said. "You knew if Mom and Dad came to mine, they might not have the energy or money to give you the show you wanted." Grace shot to her feet. "You always make me the villain," she snapped. You just stand there being quiet and perfect, and everyone feels bad if they don't do enough for you. I have to work for everything I get. I almost laughed. Grace, our whole lives have been everyone working for you. My dad whispered. We truly didn't know him. That's exactly the problem, I said. You didn't know because you didn't care enough to check. Not about the mail. Not about me. My mom bristled. We did our best. We showed up for you when it mattered. You showed up for me when it was convenient, I replied. For Grace, mattering was every single day. For me, it was whenever you had spare time. Grace sank back into her chair, the fight draining out of her. No one rushed to defend her this time. I looked around the table, at the people I'd tried my whole life to impress, to earn, to keep. I didn't lose my family tonight, I said. I just finally stopped pretending I had one that showed up for me. My mom whispered my name like a warning. My dad's eyes glistened. Grace's mascara smudged at the corners. I stood, pushing my chair back. I'm done begging for a seat at this table, I said. I'm done treating your silence like it's anything but a choice. My dad reached out. Emma, please. We can work this out. We might, I said, someday. But not while everyone's still pretending this was a misunderstanding. I put on my coat, picked up my bag, and walked to the door. I paused with my hand on the handle just long enough to say, You didn't miss my wedding. You chose not to see it. Then I stepped out into the cold and closed the door. Firm, final, no slam needed. Daniel opened our apartment door before I even reached it, like he'd been listening for my footsteps. One look at my face, and he didn't ask a single question. He just pulled me into his arms and held on until the shaking stopped. The next morning, his parents invited us for pancakes. No interrogation, no drama, just coffee, warm food, and the kind of listening I'd always wanted from my own parents. At one point, Marie squeezed my hand and said, You are family here, not just because you married our son, because you're you. A week later, Grace sent a long email full of therapists' names and explanations and apologies. I read every line. I didn't respond. My dad started calling, small conversations at first. I let him. He eventually found one of my invitations buried in a box in their garage and mailed it back to me without a note. That was the closest he's come to saying, I believe you. I'm sorry. My mom never reached out. Somehow, that stopped feeling like a wound and started feeling like clarity. I used to think family was something you protected at all costs, even when the cost was you. Now, standing in my own kitchen listening to Daniel laugh with friends who chose me long before my relatives ever tried, I know better. Family isn't just who shares your last name. It's who actually shows up. It's who listens when you speak, who doesn't delete your big moments, who keeps a seat open for you without making you beg. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from the people who only love the idea of you and build a life with people who love the real thing. If any part of this felt a little too familiar, tell me where you're watching from and share your story in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.